members of the international legal community. This is a special program of the TV channel of the Mexican Bar Association in which we will have a conversation with Patricia Lee Refo, President of the American Bar Association. Patricia Lee Refo is President of the American Bar Association, the largest voluntary association of attorneys and legal professionals in the world. As partner at Snail and Wilmer in Phoenix, Refo concentrates on complex commercial litigation and international investigations. She chairs the firm's professional liability litigation group. From 2014 to 2016, Refo was the ABA's second highest ranking elected official as chair of its policymaking House of Delegates. She has also served as chair of the ABA's largest practice group, the section of litigation, and as chair of the ABA Standing Committee of Membership, the American Jury Project, and the association's grassroots advocacy activity, ABA Day in Washington. Refo was also a member of the ABA Commission on Civic Education and the Separation of Powers. Refo has served on the Advisory Committee of the Federal Rules of Evidence of the United States Judicial Conference, appointed by Chief Justice William H. Rehnquist, and on Arizona Supreme Court's Advisory Committee on Rules of Evidence. She is a member of the American Law Institute and its Litigation Advisory Panel, and is a fellow of the American Bar Foundation and the Arizona Foundation for Legal Services and Education. Previously, Refo served as director of the American Bar Endowment and as co-chair of the National Association of Women Lawyers Committee for the evaluation of Supreme Court nominees. Among her awards and recognitions, Refo in 2007 was named to the National Law Journal's list of the 50 most influential women lawyers in America. She received her President's Award from the State Bar of Arizona and has been inducted into the Maricopa Country Bar Association Hall of Fame. She received her BA with high honors and high distinction and her JD cum laude from the University of Michigan. Dear members of the legal profession, this is a special program of the TV channel of the Mexican Bar Association. On this special program, we have a guest of honor. We have the presence of President Patricia Lee Refo, President of the American Bar Association. Dear Patricia, welcome to this special program.
Gracias. Es un placer estar con ustedes.
Thank you very much, Trish. Would you please tell us what is the American Bar Association?
You know, the American Bar Association is the largest voluntary association of lawyers and legal professionals in the entire world. It's been around for 144 years, and we work to serve our members, to serve the public, to advance the rule of law, and to defend liberty and pursue justice. So we have a large mission, lots of members, and lots of active work that we're doing.
I understand you were recently appointed as president of the American Bar Association. When was that?
I became president in August of this year after serving for a year as president-elect. So I had some time to get ready for this job.
Great. Would you please tell us what are the main activities of the American Bar Association?
I think you were asking me about some of the things that we do at the American Bar Association and our main goals.
Yes.
We only have 4, but they're all big, important goals. So our first goal is to serve our members. And as I mentioned, we have hundreds of thousands of members. So doing that, it takes up much of our work and effort. Our second goal is to improve our profession, not just in the United States, but to the extent we can, the legal profession around the world, to make the lawyers of America better lawyers and to do things that assist in improving the legal profession sort of more generally. Our third goal is to eliminate bias and enhance diversity. And aside from the importance of that goal, I love the boldness of it. It's not that we're going to try to eliminate bias or that we're going to do our best to eliminate bias. The goal is to eliminate bias, both in our profession and in our justice system. And our fourth goal, as I indicated earlier, is to advance the rule of law, both, again, in the United States and around the world. And we work in a number of countries across the globe on issues around advancing the rule of law. So it's an important goal on which we spend a great deal of work and effort.
Thank you, Trish. What are the challenges for the legal profession in the United States in light of COVID-19?
You know, what isn't a challenge in response to COVID-19, right? We've all had our worlds upended. Certainly our communities have been upended. And as you know, here in the United States, we've worked hard to try to overcome the pandemic, and in some ways have not been very successful in doing that. And right now are in the depths of a very difficult spike of COVID here in our country. So many lawyers in the United States are, like I am, at home, haven't been to their offices in a while, or go to their offices only briefly to pick up things and then go back to working from home. So whether it's a bar association or whether it's individual lawyers or large law firms, many folks are working entirely remotely. And that has changed all kinds of things about how we practice. One of the things we've done at the American Bar Association is to put together a group that we call Practice Forward, which is a group of lawyers across the American Bar Association who are working to coordinate all of the work that we are doing around what are the changes to the practice of law as a consequence of this pandemic. How much remote work, for example, will we continue to do when things begin to turn back to normal? Our courts have been upended, and many have closed almost completely, doing hearings remotely, sometimes even jury trials remotely. So there are challenges associated with that. And under our US Constitution, particularly in the criminal context, there are also constitutional issues associated with trying to do things remotely and perhaps outside the presence of the defendant in a criminal case. So the Practice Forward Task Force is leading our work to try and assist the legal profession and our court system to address the long-term effects that we will carry with us from this pandemic when we begin to come out the other side.
Mexico and other jurisdictions are pushing for online trials and electronic files for litigation purposes. What is the experience, or what is happening in the US regarding these topics?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of things online and virtually as well. Lots and lots of hearings, things that don't require, for example, a jury, are being done remotely. In fact, I would say right now, most things are being done, if they are hearings, remotely. Trials have been sort of going in fits and starts. Those are things that, of course, we're used to doing all in person. And in our country, we have juries for many of our contested court proceedings, which requires bringing in any number of people to, for example, go through the process of selecting which from this group of folks will we have actually serve on a jury. So some courts, for example, are doing the jury selection piece online and only asking the jurors who are actually selected to be the ones to come into the courthouse to actually be present for the trial. But these are very real challenges to both deliver justice and keep people safe.
Thank you very much, Trish. We will continue after this brief message. Thank you. Estimada abogacía de la barra mexicana, señoras y señores, tengo el gusto de compartir con ustedes el lanzamiento del primer canal de televisión por internet de un colegio de abogados a nivel mundial, el canal de televisión de la Barra Mexicana. Conéctate. We are talking with President Patricia Refo, President of the American Bar Association. Dear Trish, in the rule of law, it is essential to have a strong and independent judiciary. In that sense, what would it be the role of ABA in the United States regarding the independence of the judiciary?
We are important advocates for the independence of the judiciary, both at home and around the world, because of course you're exactly right that the rule of law requires that our courts be free from improper influence and that they be free from the influence of other branches of government. So we work real hard both in our state courts and in our federal courts to protect the independence of our judiciary. And that includes things like when elected officials attack judges or improperly disagree with a particular decision by a particular court. We frequently step up and say, wait a minute, it's perfectly fine to disagree with a court's decision, but it's not fine ever to attack the jurist who issued an opinion with which you disagree. So the independence of the judiciary, I would say, because it is so important to the rule of law, is foursquare front and center for the American Bar Association in much of what we do.
Thank you. Freedom of speech and freedom of press, as well as democracy, have to be built on day-by-day basis. So hypothetically, what would be the role of ABA in case of threats to the freedom of speech or freedom of press in the U.S.?
Well, you know, it's interesting, Hector. The press is the only occupation that's actually mentioned in our Constitution. So freedom of the press is for us a very big deal. Our democracy depends on people being able to express their opinions, both with respect to the government, with respect to the issues of the day, and the free press is the vehicle by which we hold our government accountable to the people. So making sure that our press is free and able to write and cover what it wants to and is not subject to improper or really any restrictions is deeply important, we believe, to the very foundation of democracy. It's informing the citizenry, making sure that they have the opportunity to hear competing points of view through the media and the press, and then is the right position for our government. So all of that goes straight back to freedom of the press and freedom of speech.
Yeah, we have been witnessing attempts in different countries that attempt to affect the attorney-client privilege. What is your position? What's ABA's position regarding the attorney-client privilege and the attempts through legislative process or judicial resolutions that might affect that privilege?
You know, I think I'd answer that, Hector, by saying that we at the ABA are pretty much purists about the attorney-client privilege. It is one of the most important things that permits lawyers to do their job and permits clients to freely get the legal advice that they need in order to make the decisions that they've come to the lawyer about. So we've had a number of instances in recent years in which various parts of our government have tried to, we think, impinge on the attorney-client privilege, particularly several years ago, for example, in instances in which the federal government was taking the position that corporations should be required to waive the attorney-client privilege or to turn over attorney-client privileged information in certain circumstances. We have a strong lobbying effort in Washington that works on these sorts of issues, and we worked very hard to make sure that we stood for the attorney-client privilege and made sure to stand against those intrusions into the privilege, because the whole point is for lawyers and their clients to be able to speak to one another freely and make sure that the flow of information both to the lawyer and from the lawyer to the client is unimpeded. So the attorney-client privilege is what permits that to happen. And we will always work very hard to make sure that that privilege is protected because, as we've said, it's the foundation of the relationship between a lawyer and a client.
Yeah, COVID-19 has affected the economy, the whole world, and of course the legal practice everywhere. Would you give us some general comments on how the legal practice has been affected in the U.S.? For instance, employment of lawyers, benefits of lawyers. What can you tell us about it?
Well, the first thing to say is that the legal needs in our country have exploded as a consequence of this pandemic. The number of people who are facing, for example, eviction because they can't pay their rent, or who need assistance with domestic violence issues because they've been forced to shelter in place with their abuser, or need help with debt relief or bankruptcies, has just exploded. And so we've worked very hard to organize the pro bono and legal services efforts in the United States to make sure that we try to begin to meet those legal needs. It is an overwhelming need that we are facing, and the eviction crisis in particular is one that is of great concern. We need not only to figure out how to keep people in their housing, but we need to figure out how to get rent relief to the landlords who are not receiving the rent payments, because they too have obligations to their lenders to pay their mortgages and their expenses and the like. It's a complex problem, and the lawyers of America need to work together with our legal services colleagues to meet those legal needs.
We will continue with this conversation after this break. Thank you. We will continue with this conversation with President Patricia Lee Refo. Dear Trish, can you give us some general comments on the recent elections in the United States and the legal actions and trials announced by President Trump?
So the short answer is that as I sit here today, I'm pleased to say that while our institutions were stressed a bit by this election in the midst of a pandemic, the rule of law prevailed and our institutions worked quite well. There are always small issues around our votes in this country, and that's to be expected because the stakes are so high. But the election was extremely secure by all reputable accounts, and the courts have continued to adjudicate whatever legitimate claims have been brought to them with respect to the election disputes, and we're moving forward as a country the way we should. And that's the nature of having an election. The rule of law prescribes not just how we do the election and the laws that govern the election, but it also prescribes what happens when the election is over. And we're moving forward and getting a new administration ready to step in January.
You know, one of the main aspects of the legacy of a president of the United States, in my opinion, is the integration of the U.S. Supreme Court. What general comments can you give us about the integration, the current integration of U.S. Court?
So the United States Supreme Court, as of course you know, is our highest court. And one of the things that the American Bar Association has done for many years is to assist the White House and the Senate in evaluating the qualifications of the persons who are nominated both to the United States Supreme Court and to our lower federal courts. Our Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary is the group that does that work. They are completely nonpartisan. They are completely independent of me and of the other officers of the association. And it is their job to do an investigation of the nominees, including a nominee for the Supreme Court, in which they talk to other lawyers and judges and gather information about the individual's capabilities as a jurist, and qualifications to sit. And so in the most recent nomination to the United States Supreme Court, that committee conducted the investigation of now Justice, and a majority of the committee concluded that she was well qualified for the position that she now holds, which is the highest ranking that the committee gives to any nominee. But the idea of our involvement is that it's long been true that lawyers will talk to other lawyers in confidence about nominees and say things that they might not be willing to say to an FBI agent who comes by asking the same or similar questions. So most White Houses, and I think the United States Senate, have found our input to be extremely valuable to them over the years.
Thank you. How do COVID-19 has affected the mentoring of young lawyers?
Well, I think that's a real issue that we need to pay attention to. My law firm, for example, has basically been working remotely since last March, as have many, many others. It's very important that we think about how in the world you help to raise up and mentor a young lawyer in a situation where everyone is working remotely. I don't know about you, but I learned a lot about how to do what I do as a lawyer just by sitting in someone's office when I was a young lawyer and watching that more senior lawyer do her thing, so to speak. So we have to be, I believe, very intentional right now to make sure that, especially for our young lawyers, but really for anybody who continues to need mentoring, and don't we all, that we are taking care of one another, that we are creating opportunities for our young lawyers to participate in the work, to have meaningful work, that we're being mindful both of the professional development and the personal needs of our lawyers. We need to be careful to take care of lawyer wellness issues just as we take care of our professional obligations as lawyers. Because if we don't take care of one another, that is often when a lawyer gets himself or herself into trouble with addiction issues or stress issues that aren't being well managed. So those are the kinds of things we need to be really mindful to in this moment of challenge.
Thank you. Can you tell us about the innovations of legal practice in the United States to face the challenges of COVID-19?
There's a lot going on in regulatory reform in the United States, and it's a very interesting topic that we could spend another hour just talking about that. But several of our states are experimenting with new and different ideas, like, for example, allowing outside businesses, non-lawyers, to invest in law firms, allowing persons who don't have a 3-year law degree to participate in some parts of delivering legal services to folks and other sorts of innovations with an eye toward trying to find ways that we can expand the delivery of legal services to more persons in America. So stay tuned and watch, because there's a lot happening, and it's going to be interesting to see, as it's done on a state-by-state basis, what ends up becoming the prevailing change for our profession.
Thank you, Trish. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So to end up this great conversation, I would like to ask you, please give us a message to all members of the legal profession in Mexico and the United States.
The American Bar Association welcomes the opportunity to work with and be part of your legal community as well. We have lots of international lawyers who are our members and who work with us on all of the important issues that lawyers everywhere care about. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today. I've enjoyed it very much.
Thank you very much, Trish. Dear members of the Mexican Bar, dear members of the American Bar Association, and all members of the legal community, this was a special program of the Channel of the Mexican Bar with Patricia Lee Refo, President of the American Bar Association. Dear Trish, thank you very much for the honor of your presence.